Welcome to the Brookside Chats. I'm your host, Pojo. Today I'm joined with two fantastic people, Brooklyn, the co-host, and a reoccurring guest, Landry.
Hello.
So, why'd you drag us out here?
I found this book called Pillow Talks, and I thought, why not? Let's read some of it.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. I can't read. We're here to talk about TV. And so I was watching TV the other day, of course, Bachelor season 54. And I realized something, that a lot of the shows are kind of getting stale, if you know what I mean. Like a lot of repeats or copies of, like, you know how The Simpsons is, the Family Guy copied The Simpsons?
Yeah.
Something like that. Is that just me, or am I going crazy?
I mean, why not both? So,
yeah, it's you going crazy is a. It's
well,
not
that's just me living.
You're on the deep end. Anyway, so yeah, I can agree with that because a lot of shows are not like in the original 5. Most of them are kind of like repeats or spin-offs of like one another. And I think with like The Bachelor, for instance, now you have a show called Love is Blind, or you have a show that's like just take away the sense of like touch or something like that, and it's just it's just weird concepts after weird concepts, like dating games and all that. So
well, it's getting really gimmicky, you know, like because you can only make The Bachelor so many times.
Yeah.
But you have to do something that sets yourself apart from it. And, whatever crazy gimmick they can come up with next is what gives birth to the next show.
Yeah. And now you're seeing stuff like, what was it, Sexy Beast? Have you seen
yes,
that?
I was just thinking
Sexy
about
Beast.
that one.
What is this?
So
Before you say anything, no, we're not sponsored, but we could be.
there we
By
go.
these shows.
I don't know if I want to be sponsored by Sexy Beats. Granted, it's not my podcast, but I might have to leave and never come back.
So do you want to explain the concept?
Sure. If I'm not mistaken, I was going to say that it's a dating game for furries, but that's not entirely accurate.
They have scales sometimes.
Sometimes.
Oh,
what
good.
they do is they make up their contestants to look like animals with, fun prosthetics and makeup and costumes and whatever. Basically, so that the contestants don't know what they actually look like to each other. So you're only going off of personality on these dates and stuff, which is an interesting concept, but really weird.
So for the audio listeners, which is I hope all of you, I just was handed a phone and I'm looking at some. Oh my goodness!
Just to distinguish our audio listeners with our visual
listeners. This is very scary on how. Oh no. So when you guys described this, I thought like fursuit type thing, but not like.
It's
this
like
is it's a weird
prosthetics.
amalgamation of animal and human.
So should I expect like Sonic the Hedgehog look like, or
Sonic
like
Chew?
Yeah, no, like the initial like when they designed Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh yeah.
In that movie, just
So,
like that.
My question though is, I feel like to be on the show you have to like look good. So do the contestants actually look good?
I don't know. I never watched it because
After
I
the
don't think I
prosthetics
can.
are off?
I don't think I can spend that long looking at prosthetics in order to get the payoff.
That's fair.
Looking at a bird person in real life, just
Bird people.
I don't like large birds, so a bird person.
You don't like Big Bird?
Listen, man.
he gets like PTSD seeing
Big
him.
Bird is a Muppet. I don't have anything against Muppets, but like
wasn't he on Elmo?
large birds, yeah, Sesame Street, like cassowaries. haunt my nightmares.
Dude, ostriches?
Ostriches are creepy too. Shoebill storks.
Ooh.
Why aren't we talking about TV anymore?
You know, I kind of like this. We're gonna follow this.
Hey, Sexy Beast, cast. I think I found your next two contestants that want to be
my
a part of
goodness.
this.
Jesus Christ.
Particularly Landry over here wants to be a bird person in real life.
Dude, I want to be an ostrich. I want my knees to go backwards.
You practically are an ostrich already. I mean, obviously,
But my knees don't go
know
backwards.
What you look
But-
like, but you kind of look like an ostrich.
I guess in a way,
Thank you.
just because of how weird this show is, though, it is kind of like an original thought, though. I mean, it's so weird that we're talking about it, and we're like,
Right.
it's just so.
Yeah.
So it, in a way, it's doing the job.
It's a gimmick, but it's such a powerful gimmick that it actually does sort of reinvent the show.
Well,
In fairness, it's a little more interesting because, you know, they could just say the contestants have to wear paper bags over their heads or something, and they decided to make it a little more interesting and probably a little more terrifying by making it animals.
Yeah.
they're trying to reach out to the child audience too.
Oh God! Stop.
Yeah, that's
All right.
So that
Joke-
is fresh. So are we coming to the consensus that that's somewhat fresh?
You know,
In a way.
I'll give it some credit. It's kind of interesting. If I weren't so terrified by the contestants, I might watch an episode.
Okay, so
But it's
Here-
comparing to, like, you know, say like Rick and Morty and like Solar Opposites, like being like a spin-off of
Yeah.
one another. Like, it doesn't seem
it's almost a carbon copy.
yeah.
So with that said, what if they went the route of like the History Channel where they just have these like couple series, but they're just really long running, like Pawn Stars or was Dirty Jobs on History?
That was Discovery.
Well, regardless, these long running shows that
No, Pawn Stars was on History.
No,
No,
Dirty
no.
Jobs.
Oh, Dirty Jobs. Sorry.
but
You're right.
is that what you would consider stale?
I think, like, if you have a good format and you kind of bring in interesting stuff little by little by little, you can kind of freshen it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But I do think, like, it does get stale a little bit after a while. But, like, I think if you get a good following audience, like, I don't think cooking shows are going to go away. I don't think wrestling's going to go away. But I think, like, you know, the WWE having a saturated, like, storyline with stuff and kind of, like, doing stuff for years and years and years is going to get boring. And that's possibly why you can see a rise with the new wrestling show, AEW, because
There's a new wrestling show.
it's run by Cody Rhodes.
Who?
He used to be Stardust, but like
Oh yes, my favorite David Bowie song.
but Dustin Rhodes, and Cody Rhodes, they're like this big 3 generational like wrestling talents, and Cody Rhodes officially founded this new company, AEW, and they're producing shows, and I think the president of the company's name is Tony Khan, and they're just bringing all this new talent. They have guys like CM Punk come out. They have a lot of like other interesting wrestlers like Sting come out, and like all these like other big names. So I think it's also just because you're building, people get so bored of stuff or seeing the exact same stuff that, like, if there was like a clone out of Family Guy, I think it might pique a curiosity because, you know, Family Guys might become stale, or like, you know, any of these other shows.
So here's a question and moving back to reality TV, because that's kind of the area of what we were talking. How would you freshen that up?
So actually, I want to disagree with Brooke here, doubling back a little bit more, and then I'll come back around to freshening it up. I think wrestling and cooking shows are kind of at an advantage compared to the other ones.
Yeah.
Because if you consider Dirty Jobs and Pawn Stars and American Pickers, stuff like that, Finding Bigfoot, even.
That's entertaining for a different reason.
Yeah.
Are they still trying to like? What if they actually do end up finding them? Like,
Yeah,
like
it is kind
does
of
the
amazing
show
that they
show
almost
end?
find him every single
Every
episode,
time.
but they never quite do. No, so wrestling has the advantage of it's got a revolving door of characters, and there's always something new to do with it. I mean, it's all in the same format, but because it's such a long-running story, I mean, it's basically a soap opera.
Yeah.
With action scenes. And
Action.
it's just fun. It's a crowd pleaser, and I don't think it's gonna get old. I mean, it's obviously cheesy, but I don't think it ever wasn't cheesy.
Oh,
And
I think
cooking
once it
shows-
got to like the 80s point,
yeah.
that's when it got to like the cheesy.
Well, that's because that's when it was blatantly obvious that it wasn't wrestling as a sport, but wrestling as a show.
Yeah.
Well, it was more so like early 90s. 80s, that's when kind of Vince McMahon was really trying to like take over a lot of the territories,
Yeah.
and it became less of like, you know, kind of your old school wrestling, and now you're wrestling, as they call it.
Wrestling.
Okay, so apparently we need to have a separate side chat for Brooke talking about wrestling history.
Oh yeah.
But cooking shows are the same way because, you know, you've got, like, Chopped, let's say, for example. Standard format, same thing every time, but you've got different personalities on every episode, different kinds of food on every episode. So there's always something to do. But with Pawn Stars, it starts off fine. And when I was a kid, I watched a lot of Pawn Stars. I don't know why, but you could just get sucked into that and watch it for hours.
It's like getting a little factoids.
Yeah. And then I got bored because Pawn Stars is boring. You have somebody come in who wants a huge amount of money for something. Rick goes, let me call in an expert. And then he calls in an expert, and the expert says, this is actually a fake rip-off one that is worth $15. And then the expert leaves, and the customer's like, I would still like a large amount of money for this because it is very cool. And Rick goes, no, I'm not going to be able to do that for you. And then the guy leaves, and then they do it again for a half hour. It's just...
And then Rick sometimes gives him money.
Yeah, he gives him, I'll give
Have
you
some money,
75 cents. It's just, it's really easy for these to run out of steam because it's just such a short premise.
Yeah.
Like, it's good the first 10 times, and then after that, you're like, I don't ever want to watch this again. Now, if we're talking about freshening them up, I think time is the biggest factor when it comes to having a show go stale.
Yeah.
You know, rip-offs aside, if things ran for under 5 seasons, like if every show lasted less than 5 seasons, I don't think anything would ever get stale again. If anything, there'd be more missed potential, which in the entertainment industry, that's your best bet, is to leave them wanting more.
Yeah.
I mean, look at The Simpsons. I know it's not reality TV, but we're in the mid-40s now,
Yeah.
right? That show is terrible. It was great for a while. Now it's not.
And you gotta give some credit to like the writers trying to scavenge shit, like, you know, more and more and more. It's just, after a while, it's just, what else do you have
Yeah,
left?
sure,
And
great effort, but like, do something else. And look at Futurama. If The Simpsons stopped, if Matt Groening was like, I'm done with The Simpsons, I don't care about this anymore, I've done all the stuff I want to do, and then went to Futurama and left The Simpsons behind, The Simpsons would be remembered incredibly fondly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's already an iconic thing right now, because, and I think that's partly because of the nostalgia that people have for the earlier seasons.
Yeah.
If The Simpsons ended when Futurama started, it'd be a classic and untouchable.
Yeah.
But instead, Futurama came and went a couple of times, and The Simpsons is still going on, and nobody's watching it.
Okay. So here's a hot take for you. You know Shark Week?
Yeah.
Do that. Make it seasonal for these episodes.
That's not a bad idea.
Because like when you can only get it like once a year, you're gonna watch it. Like Shark Week, I literally have that in my calendar.
That's really actually a good idea.
Or the return of Salmonella.
Oh my goodness. If he ever returns.
Is Salmonella coming back?
He's
He-
supposed to be.
According to Reddit, yeah.
I freaking love that guy.
So we're all anticipating the great return for.
Our Lord and Savior.
Salmonella, if you're listening to this,
We miss you.
come back.
We miss you.
We just want to talk.
So in hindsight, keep on the seasonal stuff, or maybe like let the audience get a taste of like something and kind of let them kind of like want more of it. Like I think a good show that I've been recommending to Pojo here is Danger 5, and
Oh my goodness.
it's
The most American, non-American thing I've ever watched.
I've never heard of this. Tell me about it.
Oh,
It's so they only have 6 episodes, and it's basically a cheesy spy comedy, and you have these like 5 like agents, and they're always trying to like assassinate Hitler, and they have like the Nazis just doing these like random shenanigans, and like at one point the Nazis try to like take over the world with dinosaurs. Or the first episode they tried stealing all the monuments, because a world without monuments is in the world worth living.
They made the monuments into a Hitler monument.
Oh, lovely.
So like they use like the Statue of Liberty as like a hand.
Oh my god.
They put the Sphinx head as like the top. They put that leaning tower.
It's
Oh,
awful, and I'm going to watch it.
It's satirical comedy, and it's a legend.
Well, obviously, I wouldn't expect you to recommend me a show that was like unironically in favor of Nazis.
It's not in favor. It's just, bad guy. They're
I
trying
know,
to stop
you-
them.
You said it was satirical. Like, I know it's satirical. It's a comedy with Nazis.
There we go. But yeah, just leave the audience savoring. Make sure they like want to hear, and like give them a taste of stuff, but don't,
Let them taste the fondue.
You know, this
Exactly.
is also...
But don't give them the whole block of cheese.
This is also why I've been saying for a while now that the miniseries is probably the best form of entertainment when it comes to fiction, at least. I mean, books are great. I mean, like, visual medium.
Yeah.
Between, like, movies and TV shows.
Yes.
Because with movies, a lot of the problems that people run into is 2 hours is not enough time to really go in depth into a really rich story with rich characters that you want to, dive deep into. But then if you do it as a TV show, you're going to have a lower budget. It's going to look completely different. And you're going to do it for 10 seasons and run out of steam and have an unsatisfying finale, and everyone's going to hate it in the end. I mean, look at, like, Lost,
I never got into it. It was
I
too
think like
confusing.
another prediction too is like, thinking about this and seeing how like, I love this show too, like Rick and Morty, like they were renewed for a couple of seasons. Do you think they're possibly going to become more and more stale after each season? Because how do you keep like one-upping yourself?
A lot of people disagree with me on this one, but I think they've been doing a pretty good job
Yeah.
of changing up their tone.
Okay.
I mean, you can only get so meta before it gets old, obviously, and there's probably going to come a point where they run out of levels of meta-ness to go through and end up selling out and that's probably going to be where the end point is. But I think Harmon's probably smart enough to end it just before that point.
Yeah.
But as I was saying, I mean, if you look at a show like The Boys or Invincible, probably Amazon does it really well. You know, you have a really high budget, or if it's not high budget, it looks high budget. The budget was well spent. Mini series where you've got hours of content that goes in depth. It's not limited by TV censorship. It's not limited by movie run times. And it's also not costing so much from extra time to where there's so much filler and it runs out of steam. Like, they've got story to tell, and it's all used to tell the story. So when you have a mini series, you have a good start point and a good end point in mind. You can tell the story as long as you have to, and it's great. I wish more people would do mini series.
Well, with that said, I believe that's all the time that we have for. Thank you for coming out. I'm your host, Pojo.
I'm your co-host, Brooklyn.
I'm swallowing coffee. I'm Landry.
Thank you once again for coming out. Have a good one. Stay frosty.